Hello, boys and girls. Greg from the Scary Spirits podcast here to make you another cocktail. This week's cocktail is the Brandy Alexander. And as always, is the featured cocktail in today's episode. We're going to start with our shaker with ice. To that, we're going to add brandy, hence the name, Brandy Alexander. 1 ounce. 1 ounce of brandy. Next, dark crème de cacao. 1 ounce. Delicious. Next, 1 ounce cream. Then we shake. We're going to take our chilled cocktail glass. We're going to strain it in there. Then we're going to garnish with some dusting of nutmeg from the plastic container. And there you have it, boys and girls, the Brandy Alexander. It looks and sounds delicious, I must say. Yeah, that's pretty good, boys and girls. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. See ya.
The sins of the father. They can be relentless, especially in horror films. And that is certainly the case in this week's episode of the Scary Spirits podcast, Son of Frankenstein. It all starts off innocently enough, with just some subtle hero worship and then flipping through some old lab journals. Next thing you know, you're 100% in, making sins of your own to pass on. I do love my dad. I just really hope he doesn't have lab experiment books hidden in the basement for me to find, because honestly, I have enough sins of my own. Cheers!
Welcome to the Scary Spirits podcast. Please be advised that the presenters may use adult language and/or discuss adult situations. This podcast is not intended for younger listeners or those that may be easily offended. So, if you're ready, let's go.
Hello, boys and girls. I'm Greg.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen.
And welcome to the Scary Spirits podcast, the podcast that combines the two very different yet highly compatible worlds of scary films and alcoholic spirits.
What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed, Karen. How are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you, Greg?
I'm getting there, Karen. I'm getting there.
Well, your drink is certainly helping.
I hope so, Karen. Hopefully, I will not underserve myself as I did last week.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. I wouldn't even bring that up if I were you.
Karen, I believe this week's film was my choice, was it? Was it not?
It was.
Karen, this week I have chosen a film from 1939 called Son of Frankenstein.
Yeah, I thought for sure it was going to be a Hammer film.
But no.
You surprised me.
It's a Universal film.
You can still surprise me, Greg. Isn't that nice to know?
I'll try to remember that, Karen. Does that mean I don't have to try so hard?
I don't think you try very hard anyway. Let's be honest. So it's a Universal film. Is there a reason you chose this?
Well, if you're listening to this on Go Live Day, Karen, it is June 12th, and Sir Basil Rathbone, who stars in this film, was born June 13th. Way back in 1892.
Wow. He's way older than me.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you remember 1939, but didn't. Because obviously you don't.
Obviously.
Unless you were like some vampire or something, which I'm not quite sure because you keep picking these weird artsy vampire films. But Sir Basil would have been 132 years old tomorrow.
Nice.
So happy birthday, Sir Basil. I assume is how you pronounce it and not Basil. Because they spell it the same. Basil. I assume it's Basil.
Sounds more elegant.
I also have a cocktail, Karen.
Excellent. What is that?
As we do. It's called the Brandy Alexander.
And how would you make such a thing?
We're going to need 1 ounce of brandy, 1 ounce of dark crème de cacao, 1 ounce cream. I used heavy cream. And freshly grated nutmeg for a garnish. Going to combine the brandy, crème de cacao, and cream in a shaker filled with ice. Shake well, and then strain into a chilled cocktail glass. Garnish with a dusting of nutmeg. Serve and enjoy.
We both had the nutmeg. That's impressive.
Yeah. Freshly grated nutmeg, Karen.
Yes.
Amazing how we just have like nutmeg lying around that we can freshly grate.
I know. We have a lot of this stuff lying around now.
Should we give our friends and listeners time to make their own Brandy Alexander?
Absolutely.
You understand why I picked it? Though,
yes.
Karen? No,
yes.
After watching the film, you totally get it now.
I do.
All right. Hold on. And we're back.
Yes, we are.
Karen, might you have a brief synopsis for us?
I do.
Go on, tell us all the story about the son of Frankenstein.
Baron Wolf von Frankenstein is determined to prove the legitimacy of his father's scientific work, thus rescuing the family name from disgrace. With the help of Igor, a grave robber, Wolf successfully reanimates the monster his father originally brought back from the dead. But when several villagers are killed mysteriously, Wolf must find the culprit in order to vindicate his creation or face the possibility that he may be responsible.
Thank you, Karen. We are a match. Karen, tell us everything you really enjoyed in this film. What did you really like? It's got Bela Lugosi in it, and Boris Karloff, and Basil Rathbone. What's not to like? Go on, tell us all about it.
Well, it's interesting that I would say I like the story, but I think what was the last Frankenstein one you just watched with the
Hammer one?
Yeah.
The Evil of Frankenstein?
Yes. So I was rapsing about how unique and how different that storyline was.
Right.
That the hypnotist was controlling Frankenstein.
Yes.
And what a unique approach. And then we watched this movie and someone's controlling Frankenstein. So I feel a little duped. But the story is interesting. The son returns
But you can only talk about what you know, Karen, or what you've seen.
I know, but it was just kind of funny as I was watching it. I'm like, this seems rather familiar. So the story's interesting.
It's almost like I planned it.
Almost. The shadow work is really nice throughout the film, I thought. The acting is good. I think it's an interesting character that Bella plays. I've not seen him really like that. He's a little freer in it, a little less reserved. He usually plays a more reserved character, I think, at least in the movies I've seen. So this was a little
Yeah,
bit
we have
more.
now seen him as the monster and Igor.
So, a little different there. That's pretty much all I have. What do you have?
First thing I wrote down is that Lugosi is good in it. I just wrote down he's much better as Igor than he is as the monster. Because
Yes.
it was Frankenstein versus the Wolfman, right? That he was the monster.
I can't remember, but
I believe it was. We did do that, right? Yeah.
it's a fun role for him. Like I said, he's a little
good
more.
in it. He almost,
Yeah,
I mean, Basil Rathbone's very good as well, but he almost steals the film. And Lionel Atwell is
I
good in
know.
it as well,
He
which we've
is.
seen in several other films starring Fay Wray. Sadly, Fay Wray is not in this one.
No.
This film could have used Fay Wray, I think.
Yes.
Yes, if this film had Fay Wray as Elsa, oh God, would have been awesome.
Now that you're a Fay Wray fan.
I agree, shadow work is good. Music's good, the makeup's good,
Yeah, the makeup was good.
special effects are good.
The clothes are
It's
fun.
universal.
Love the clothes, but they're of the time, so you can't really say they were doing anything spectacular. But I do love, especially what the ladies slept in back in the day. Very elaborate costumes.
Do you think they slept in that really? Or just in the movies?
I don't know.
You think they just slept in the buff? Like
Maybe.
I'm sure they all do today, Karen. Don't
does
you
seem
all
a
just sleep
little,
in the buff?
does seem a little over the top, their outfits. But I love the way they
Or
flow.
your sweats,
Yeah.
your
Concert
sweatpants.
t-shirts and sweats.
Yes, exactly.
The way they flow down the stairs when they're coming. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, in their evening gowns and their
Yes.
or their house coats or whatever. And the men always dress nicely for bed too in their smoking jackets.
Yes.
And their separate beds, That's interesting. Probably sleep better. Separate my own bed. But anyway, that's all I got. Story was interesting. I agree. The story was
it's a unique
interesting.
Story.
The story was actually better than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I had no idea what it was going to be going in.
Yeah, this is the third Universal Frankenstein film, and I think it stands pretty well on its own. It does. It's a pretty good movie, all in all. This is the last starring Boris Karloff, but because he was like, after this, I'm done. I ain't doing that shit no more.
Well, he doesn't really have a whole lot to do.
He never does, Karen. He has no lines because he's the monster. He does get a chance to emote in this one.
I agree.
Which I liked. But he kind of always does, I guess.
A little more fluid than other times where they presented the character. He has a little less of that stilted walk. Doesn't have the 500-pound shoes on.
Well, he does have them on,
but he doesn't walk like that.
No.
He does a little, but it's a little
he is more fluid. He's more graceful.
Yes. That's a good word for it.
He's not stiff. He moves around and
he's sort of stiff, but he's graceful stiff.
Well, I don't think he's very stiff at all. So
the kid says he walks.
Yeah, the kid says, yeah. Kids say lots of things, Karen. All right. Anything you didn't particularly enjoy?
Well, speaking of the kid, I didn't think he was very good. Nah. I mean, I know he's young, and that's fine.
I thought he was awesome.
He talks a little bit like Shirley Temple or something. I think it's the cadence the kids in all the movies had back then, because he talks just like
He's just repeating what they tell him to say.
I know. Well, hello.
And he did a good job of it. So
he was doing okay, but you could tell that's what he was doing.
I'm assuming that's what they did.
You can tell that they just told him what to say. I'm sure he had an inclination, but as kids go, I didn't like him.
Okay.
I thought it was a little long. It dragged a little bit for me. There were some scenes that I could definitely have done without. And I was very disappointed in the set. of the castle. It looked like a modern art museum or something, and I didn't get it. Some of the rooms looked really good, but the overall inside looked very art deco or something. I don't know. It was distracting to me that it didn't look like a castle. Some of the rooms were okay, but most of it didn't look like a medieval castle at all. I mean, not that I've spent a lot of time in medieval castles, but that's not what I think they should look like.
Oh, haven't you, Karen? I'm not so sure.
That's pretty much all I have.
So the first thing I wrote is I don't like the castle.
Yeah, it was weird, right?
Yeah, sets aren't good at all. I wrote postmodern. Looks like, I don't know what they're trying to be artsy or something.
I don't know. It looked like a modern art museum.
But this is supposed to be his father's castle, so it should resemble the original castle in Frankenstein, right? It doesn't at all. The lab doesn't either.
No, the lab is lacking also.
Yeah, the effects are fine. I mean, there's plenty of
electricity and all that, but
Tesla coils
but it's sparse. It's very cold.
Yes.
I don't know.
It's empty.
It is. All the rooms were empty. And I realized they were moving in kind of
Minimalist, I guess. But it has that artsy feel to it. Like they brought
they did it on purpose.
Oh, I'm sure they did. Like they brought in some, I want to say Frank Lloyd Wright, but someone like that to like design the sets, but not Frank Lloyd Wright because, he's awesome. Yeah, hated the sets. So you mentioned it dragged. I checked the time several times, how much time was left. But afterwards I was thinking, if it was 1939 and I paid my $1.50 or whatever the hell it was to go into the movie theater, I don't think I'd have been mad. You know what I mean? Because I would feel like I got my money's worth. I think it felt like it. I feel like I felt like it dragged because I was in a freaking hurry to watch it. I'm like, right? Because we needed to record, right? So I got to watch this and record. So I'm not sure whether to say that's a bad thing or not. I can't think of. Nothing stood out.
Where I thought this doesn't need to be here, but I can't remember what they are.
Yeah, see, none of those stood out to me. Scenes that didn't need to be there. Right, we saw a lot of the inspector and Frankenstein together, but that was kind of an interesting,
Well, okay. I can think of
intellectual battle.
For instance, one of the servants shows up at the council, and they're going to pay him to spy, but nothing ever comes of that.
Well,
never talk to him again.
No, but we see him several times after that because we don't see him before that, but we see him several times after that.
Yeah, but not reporting to them.
No, but just to let us know, yes, he is there. Yeah, I mean, there might have been a little too much of the council. I don't know. I mean, you get it, right? I only need the beginning council scene to know that they don't want him. They're worried about him coming back, right? But
well, yeah, and then the whole who voted to hang Igor and all that could have all been done in one minute.
But I don't really have that much bad to say about it either. The music was fine, but over times I didn't write it down, but I remember thinking that's a little much.
I didn't even notice it, so I didn't think it was much.
There are times when it's a little overbearing, maybe a little too loud. I don't know.
I thought Basil was over the top a little bit sometimes, but I get it.
It's 1939. Karen.
I get where they were going, but it was.
I like how he keeps offering everyone brandy.
I know.
And playing darts.
Some of his dart throws were very good.
Yeah, but I don't know.
He wasn't even looking, and he almost got a bullseye.
No, but there were some continuity issues there as well, where he walked up and the darts weren't exactly where I think they would have been. But whatever. Yeah, that's all I got.
No, I think it's good.
It got pretty good reviews. I've read. It's regarded as a good Universal Frankenstein film. Now, anyway, I'm not sure the review I have is a good one.
It's glowing.
But we'll see. Anything else you want to talk about? before we move on?
No?
All right. Would you like to hear a review from the time, Karen?
Well, you've built it up, so now, yes, of course. What's over in Critics Corner?
But first, I have to tell you, and you'll find this impressive, I am sure. This has a 95% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
It has a 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb, which is still pretty good. What do you think Google users think of this film, Karen?
86%.
93% of
Wow.
Google users like this film.
That's impressive.
It is impressive. The review I have is from the New York Times, Karen. So, they're a bunch of sticks in the mud. A bunch of old buddy-duddies. And it's dated January 30th, 1939. When did this film come out? Let me check. January 13th, 1939. So a couple of weeks after the film came out. And I have not read this review prior. So once again, just like last week, I'm going to be reading blind. So excuse me when I stumble over all these big freaking
Oh my
words,
God, the professionalism.
because I'm sure the New York Times used lots of big words. But as I'm scanning, I'm not seeing any. But we'll see how it goes. Ooh, this is exciting, Karen. It's like live TV. New York Times, January 30th, 1939. No beating around the raspberry bush. If Universal's Son of Frankenstein at the Rivoli, I guess that's a theater, Karen, isn't the silliest picture ever made, it's a sequel to the silliest picture ever made, which is even sillier. But its silliness is deliberate, a very shrewd silliness, perpetrated by a good director in the best traditions of cinematic horror, so that even while you laugh at its nonsense, you may be struck with the notion that perhaps that's as good a way of enjoying oneself at a movie as any. It must have been all the actors themselves could do in this day and age, way back in 1939, to keep straight faces, always excepting poor Boris Karloff, of course, who couldn't laugh through all that makeup even if he tried. I think he could have. For Son of Frankenstein is a chip off the old dock. The most horrible horror picture you ever saw, at least since The Bride of Frankenstein, which was a sequel to Frankenstein. Imagine, if you can, a picture so tough that Basil Rathbone plays a sympathetic part in it. So mean you feel sorry for Lionel Atwell. So ghastly that Bela Lugosi is only an assistant boogeyman. If you can imagine all this, then it is possible that you may have a pale, partial conception of Frankenstein films. It is such a picture that if Mary Shelley had suspected the mere possibility of it, she might have consigned that first mild manuscript to the flames in sheer diffidence. For our part, we're rather glad she didn't. Anybody who'd like a nice, unsunny place to be haunted and couldn't do worse than rent Castle Frankenstein for the season. Such a paradise of low, brow-busting beams, such a number of enchanting secret doors and passageways, such endless miles of corridors rendered fascinating by skiddy turns, pneumatic draughts, and sudden breakneck stairways. Such lovely views of the countryside, which combines the picturesque features of a badlands of South Dakota with the rustic charm of the brimstone beds in and around Vesuvius. I didn't think the scenery was that bad.
They're not happy at all.
No. With a pit of boiling sulfur in the basement and Bela Lugosi living there as a combination monster, nurse, and janitor, what could be cozier? Yes, sir, Castle Frankenstein is the showplace of the neighborhood. At dinner in the great hall, Josephine Hutchinson, who I think plays Elsa, seems justified in remarking to Basil that the front door knocker gets on her nerves, inasmuch as each stroke is equivalent to the Independence Day explosion in San Francisco. When the butler fails to show up and Mr. Rathbone, who thinks he has got the monster safely hidden out in the lab, as he calls it of all things, inquires about him, the second man matter-of-factly explains, "He took a tray to the baby in the nursery, sir, and we haven't seen him since." No, by George, you couldn't beat Castle Frankenstein for the purposes you have in mind as a place to be haunted in. That is, and it certainly ought to be available cheap, considering what happened to the last tenants. It must be quite a problem to heat, though. Whatever. I think he's trying to be clever and funny, but
Well, everybody has their opinion. He didn't like it, but I didn't think it was that as bad as he said.
no, but I have read summaries today even from other reviews that were very good. It's just
From the time or from now?
yes, from the time.
Okay.
It's just New York Times guy didn't like it because he's trying to be funny.
It sounds like he just doesn't like monster films. We didn't like any of them.
Yeah, he didn't like Bride of Frankenstein, did he?
That one was weird.
Yeah, I think this is better than Bride of Frankenstein. I will say that. I don't know. Sounds like he doesn't like some of the actors either. Basil Rathbone and Lionel Atwell. They usually plays heavies. You know what I mean? So they're playing different roles. Get over it, dude. Don't think about what they've done. Think about what they're doing now. They're acting. What they do. All right. Are you ready to get into it? Scene by scene.
Yep.
Son of Frankenstein, 1939, rated 13 plus. Karen, did you watch this on Amazon Prime as I did? Wasn't expensive though. It was under $4. It was like $3.79 or something crazy. But of course, after this podcast goes live, it'll go way up.
The Scary Spirits bump.
Movie starts. We have credits, and I wrote Gowns by Vera West. I believe we've seen Vera West's name before, Karen.
I think we have. I saw suggested by the story written in 1816 by Mary Shelley.
I saw that as well. Film opens and we see, I guess, a castle gate or the castle, and then there's a sign that says something forbidden. I don't know what's forbidden, probably trespassing. I don't know, but it's something verboten because it was in German and I recognize verboten.
All I said was,
forbidden.
Looks like we're in Germany.
And there's a big Frankenstein thing over the door. It says Frankenstein. And we see two boys running away.
Well, they dare each other to throw a rock at Igor, and then Igor shows up in the window and they take off.
Boys will be boys. Then we cut to the old white man in the town talking about the Frankensteins.
It's raining like crazy, too.
And they fear that the son of Frankenstein is just as bad as the father, the old man of the town, the old white men in the town.
Yeah, who are in charge. And they basically tell us they have something to deliver to the son who is coming.
The Meisterburger Burgermeister promised to deliver his father's papers to the son, and he intends to see that through, Karen.
Damn it.
Because
Yes.
he's the Meisterburger Burgermeister, and he is honor. But whatever. So then we see the Frankensteins on a train on their way, and apparently they're American, Karen.
I think she is.
Yeah, she definitely is. But I feel like he's lived in America most of his life, probably. That's what it sounded like. And he tells her, it must be strange arriving in a strange country. And Frankenstein talks of his father, and he blames his father's assistant for giving the creature a bad brain. It's not his father's fault that the creature was a monster. It's the damn assistant who screwed up getting the brain, which is factual. He's correct.
Abby Normal's brain. She does say, looking out at the countryside, that she's glad they went to London and Paris first.
Then we see the Frankensteins arrive at the Frankenstein railway station. So apparently the town's called Frankenstein now.
Yes.
I think that's a new thing. Meisterburger Burgermeister and the Council of Old White Men meet them, but not to greet them, Karen.
Yes, we're here to meet you, not greet you. I thought that was kind of funny.
Meisterburger Burgermeister gives Frankenstein his father's paper. Frankenstein tries to give a speech to the locals, but they disperse. I wrote they're assholes.
Well, they don't want to listen to him.
Well,
What did he start? He said
He's being
something.
nice. He's trying to be friendly with them, but they're just like,
Well, then he says, my
they're
father was a
assholes.
good man.
Oh,
And
yes. He
that's when they
starts
all
talking about his father, and then they're like, yeah, whatever. We're out of here.
do not let the past, let the past remain in the past. And he's just like, just everybody get over it. So there were a couple murders.
Can't we all get along?
Yeah.
So then there's a car that takes them to the castle. It's a stormy night, of course. Peter Frankenstein, the son, is happy to see Amelia, the servant.
I think it's his nanny.
Elsa asks if the bedrooms are cheery, and Amelia says, after a pause, yes, ma'am, they are. You will be pleasantly surprised, but no, they're not really.
The wife is immediately uncomfortable.
But Baron Frankenstein loves the medieval feel of the castle. It's like a postmodern medieval, but whatever.
It's groovy, that's for sure.
So then we meet Benson the butler, and he tells Frankenstein that none of the locals would agree to work at the castle, so he had to hire people from out of town. So then Benson makes Frankenstein a brandy. Frankenstein opens the box with his father's papers, and there's a letter addressed to him, apparently right on top. How convenient. And he says in this box is diary of his experiments, and his father writes, I give you the choice of destroying these papers or carrying on my work. Which, good for him. And we see Igor outside the window in the rain.
Yeah, watching, peeping.
Yep. Then we see cut to Peter going to bed and saying his prayers. And he is afraid of nothing, apparently, because the lightning does not scare him.
He's got Shirley Temple hair. I think he's a redhead.
I think he is.
Those little curls he's got going on.
I think he is.
It's black and white, so we can't tell. But
yeah. Elsa seems worried that Peter will be safe. Then Elsa goes to her bedroom, which is, her and Frankenstein's bedroom. And there are two queen beds in there, kind of facing
at an angle.
And she asks, why are they faced this way? And the servant or the whatever says, if the house is filled with dread, face the beds from head to head. It's an old expression, apparently.
It's a superstition. Yeah. And I looked it up, and all it came up was a line from that movie. I couldn't find it anywhere.
Okay.
But I did find other superstitions that have to do with your bed.
Okay.
So you should never place a mirror in front of your bed, because your soul could enter the mirror while sleeping and be stolen by evil spirits that lurk on the other side.
Does that mean you can't have mirrors above your bed, Karen?
Probably not.
Okay, because that facing the bed?
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, how? So you can't basically have a mirror in your bedroom. That's what
not
it's
facing
saying.
your bed. I have a mirror in my bedroom.
They're hanging on a wall. Aren't they all facing the bed?
Mine's not.
At some angle?
No, if your wall is longer than your bed, you could put it in that part. You are very contrary today, like dealing with my 17-year-old. It's bad luck for the foot of your bed to face an external door. Some people call this the funeral position, as it is easy to carry.
External meaning outside?
I think your bedroom door, as it is easy to carry the body out. You should never lean a broom against your bed, as there are evil spirits in a broom that could invade your bed. For sweet sleep, place rosemary under your pillow. It will ward off evil. And since it is the herb of remembrance, it will bring sweet dreams.
Rosemary. I'd try that tonight. I'm sure I have some rosemary.
But I didn't find this superstition they're talking about.
Nothing about putting your shoes or anything on the bed.
Well, we talked about it in our superstition episode, but those were just some quick ones.
Okay. And then we cut to angry townsfolk. And right here I wrote, the castle looks kind of postmodern. I don't like it.
I don't like it either, but I did think if it was an actual medieval castle, I think I would like it as long as it had modern amenities in it. Because the windows are huge. The ceilings are very tall. The doors are really big. Those tiny parts of it, I did like, the curtains that hang and all that. There is a little bit of Gothic in it, but mostly it's not. But those touches, I could live there in those. If it was more medieval, I think it would be
more
fun.
Spooky. You'd like it if it was spooky.
It's not so much spooky. It's just
more
Gothic,
like Transylvania.
Like heavy furniture. And
where your ancestors are from.
Yes.
All right, so then the inspector arrives, played by Lionel Atwell.
He uses the big door knocker,
Yes.
which is awesome because it like shakes the whole house when you use it.
Sees the Baron, Frankenstein offers the inspector brandy. Inspector tells Frankenstein that as long as he lives there, he will be in danger. He's basically telling me, I'm here to protect you, right? Frankenstein questions the inspector about the monster. Inspector tells his story, how the creature tore his arm off of him. Frankenstein feels badly for the inspector and he pours him a glass of brandy.
Yes.
How about that brandy?
But Frankenstein is offended, because his name is poisoned. It doesn't matter who he is.
But he is sympathetic.
Well, once he tells this, he was saying, well, these stories must be exaggerated, told like telephone.
Yes.
The more
have you ever actually seen the creature? And he's
yes,
yes, I have.
Yes, and then
how could I forget?
He ripped his arm off, and so he's got a wooden arm in its place.
Yeah, and he goes on to tell him that there are 6 unsolved murders, even after his father was killed or whatever. After supposedly the monster was killed. All caused by a concussion, all prominent people in the town, and all their hearts had burst, Karen.
Yeah, I don't really
burst.
Get that. Yes, just exploded. Maybe with fear.
There's local superstition of a murdering ghost they call Frankenstein, the angry townsfolk. But the inspector pledges his help. He says Frankenstein only needs to ring the alarm bell in the tower and the inspector will hear it and come to help.
Yeah, I thought that would come back around, but it didn't.
No, it didn't. So then as the inspector's leaving, Elsa invites him to dinner. Fay Wray would have been good. Fay Wray would have been good in the Elsa role. I'm just saying.
He says he'd be honored to come up.
Then Elsa talks about the lightning and how terrifying it is or frightening it is. And Frankenstein says that nothing in nature is terrifying when you understand it.
And they're both looking out these huge windows, watching the light. I thought that was a neat shot.
Yeah, the library is a nice set.
Yeah.
Of all the sets in the castle, the library is probably the best.
Yes. But they're kind of outlined in the window and the lightning's going off. And I thought, really nice, really nicely done.
And Frankenstein talks up his father utilizing lightning to bring life.
Yes. He has a little bit of hero worship for his dad.
Yes, you do.
But he's constantly trying to clear his name. I think he's on a mission to do that. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We appreciate you spending time with us. You can help us grow our audience by following us on social media at Scary Spirits Podcast. Just look for us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And don't forget to tell all your friends to find us too. Now let's get back to the show.
And then we see Igor watching Peter through a door in the door, I wrote. It's like a peephole kind of thing, but a bigger one.
Yeah, he's watching the little boy.
Peeping.
Yep.
Peeping on the little boy, Karen. Next morning, Frankenstein and Elsa are having breakfast and Peter comes down with a toy gun. He says he's going to go hunting tigers. Frankenstein says that he is going to explode the ground as well and he's going to take his gun too. Then Elsa and Frankenstein look at the laboratory from the window. And
it almost looks like an observatory.
Yeah. Frankenstein says he can't wait to explore it, like a
planetarium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we see Frankenstein exploring the laboratory, gun in hand. Igor watches from above in a hole in the wall. I wrote it's destroyed, but still smoking because there's smoke coming up.
I know, that's what I said. It's still smoking, but.
And I wrote hot spring ? He says he smells sulfur. So.
Yeah. So it is a sulfur spring. So sulfur water is a condition where water is exposed to hydrogen sulfide gas, giving a distinct rotten egg smell, which I cannot imagine how that smelled. That was a big sulfur spring. Bathing in water high in sulfur or other minerals for its presumed health benefits is known as balneotherapy or balneotherapy. These are said to give the person bathing in the waters ageless beauty and relief from aches and pains. So I guess it would smell, but if I could get ageless beauty
Yeah, I've been to
and relief from
Sulphur
aches and pains.
Springs or Hot Springs, Arkansas
Well,
or something.
sulfur, I don't know if they're all hot springs or sulfur, but seems like it'd be a nice thing to do.
Well, look at me, Karen.
Well, that's true. I mean, do you only have to do it once and you're ageless forever and you don't have aches and pains?
Yes. Yes, Karen. Yes, you do. So then Igor pushes a stone over and almost hits Frankenstein.
Yeah, you knew it was just the stone in the wind.
It
So
was
it's a
there,
circle
so-
and then there's a stone. And I'm like,
I was thinking, is he accidentally going to knock it over? But no, he purposely pushes it over.
but it's there
I
for
was-
a reason.
I was surprised that he did that, but because apparently he's trying to kill Frankenstein. Frankenstein pulls his gun and orders Igor to come down. Igor explains that he was hung by his neck and it was broken, but he survived. What they pronounced him dead, but they would not bury him, so they threw his body into the laboratory thinking he was dead.
Yeah, I don't know how he's up and walking if his neck is broken. And they
Well,
did put a
It
nice
didn't heal right.
No, and that was a kind of nice touch.
Igor shows Frankenstein a secret passage in the laboratory. And I wrote, Igor appears very strong because he can pull that door open pretty easily, which comes into play later, like much
Yes.
later. But so then Igor takes Frankenstein to the family crypt, sees the coffin of his father. It says Heinrich, even though, he's known as Henry, and someone has written under it in chalk, maker of monsters.
And his grandfather's down there too,
Yep. Igor shows Frankenstein the body of the creature.
which he didn't see when they walk in. So when they walk in,
It's like right in front of you, but
it's
yeah,
in
you
front
don't
of
see
him
it.
is the creature, and then the two coffins or tombs are on either side.
Right.
He goes to each tomb to look at them, and then Igor brings him over to the creature. And I thought, I think I would have seen that first. It was kind of funny.
Frankenstein touches the creature and the creature moves his hand. It's alive. Igor says he does things for him. The creature is not dead. He is sick. Creature was struck by lightning and he can no longer walk, but he cannot die. Frankenstein wants to take the creature up to the laboratory. Igor protests. Frankenstein takes a torch and scratches out monsters and puts men on his father's casket. So, maker of men is what it says. Cut to the old white men in the town talking about Frankenstein again. They don't like how quiet it's been, Karen. It's awful quiet. What's going on out there?
They use the line that every parent of a toddler uses. If it's quiet, it's not good.
They say they've seen servants moving boxes into the laboratory and Igor is helping them. And they want Igor to come and report what is going on. Next, we cut to Frankenstein using a block and tackle to pull the monster up into the laboratory.
Yes. But I said, it doesn't look like it's working. He's pulling like crazy and the monster's barely inching up. I thought it kind of worked like a little bit
in
slower.
Reverse. Yeah, probably usually.
Maybe at a lot of lax chain or something.
Then Benson tries to enter the laboratory, the butler, but Igor stops him. And Frankenstein tells him, no, I need him. He takes my notes. He's been with me for years.
Yeah, he won't spill the beans.
Then we see Frankenstein examining the monster and he records his findings to Benson. Creature's blood pressure is 3 times a normal person and his heart is beating rapidly, apparently.
Okay, so he uses the term systolic and diastolic. So the
blood pressure
top,
terms.
the top number is called systolic pressure. This is the pressure in the arteries when the heart beats. The bottom number is called diastolic pressure. This is the pressure in the arteries between heartbeats. So your blood pressure is considered high, stage 1, if it reads 130 to 139. Stage 2, 140 to over 90 or higher.
The top number.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. 139 over 80 is stage 1. 140 over 90 or higher is stage 2. If you get a blood pressure reading of 180 over 120 or higher more than once, seek medical treatment right away. that's considered hypertensive crisis. So,
but his is like, this creature's is like crazy.
Well, that's what I said.
280 over or something. I don't know what they said.
Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
And mine is quite normal now, boys and girls, thanks to medication.
Shoot, I can't see it. But yeah, it's high. I thought it was like 300 or something. And then
yeah, it is.
So I'm thinking, what level is stroke level? Because, if you're above 180 over 120, you're considered stroke level dangerously high and you require immediate medical attention. And that would also damage blood vessels, weaken arteries in the brain, increasing the risk of stroke. So that's all with blood pressure. So this Frankenstein is way, way high.
The creature is high.
Sorry, yes, the creature. But we find out in a minute.
It's like 360 over.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then his heartbeat is
240 or something.
Yeah. So a normal resting heart rate for adults, and he's laying down.
Mm-hmm. He's resting.
He's
been resting the whole movie.
Yeah. So a normal resting heart rate for adult humans is 60 to 100 beats per minute. Generally, the lower the heart rate implies more efficient heart function, so better cardiovascular fitness. But he's like way over the top. Oh, here he's got systolic pressures over 300, diastolic over 223. He also says that he's got a hyperpituitary gland, which is why he's so big, because but he was made from parts.
He's not so big because that's why he's big.
But that's whatever. Why he says that, but that's not true because he was made from parts. And he's got a heart rate of 250 beats per minute. And then they do an X-ray.
A magical X-ray.
Yes.
Karen, I wrote.
Without any covering to protect themselves.
Just put a big LCD monitor in front of him, which hadn't even been thought of in 1939, but okay.
And there's 2 bullets in his heart.
Yes. Then Frankenstein examines his blood under the microscope and says that he says lots of Latin, I said. That's all.
Well, when you look at it, at first I said that is blood cells teeming with bacteria because there's tiny little, but it's not. If you look at it, it looks like it might be sperm cells underneath because they're swimming. But they wanted to make it look like 2 different cells fighting it out.
Yeah, cells seem to be battling one another.
Yeah.
You've never seen anything like that, Karen?
No.
Looking at blood?
No. If I saw that in my cells, I would swear like a sailor because that looks like it was contaminated.
Okay. Then we cut to the old white guys in the town questioning Igor. He claims he's a blacksmith.
They call him a body snatcher. But he's pretty free with his information. Well, at first he's like, he's,
Well, he doesn't understand what the doctor does.
He says, I'm not a doctor. I'm a blacksmith.
I don't know what he does. And he says, you can't hang me because you've already hung me once and pronounced me dead. And
I don't know why he can't.
Burgermeister Meisterberger agrees, said, no, you've already been sentenced to death and we've pronounced you dead. You can't sentence the dead man to death.
So one of the guys is like, so he can do anything? And they kind of said, yeah.
But 2 of the men say that they will see him hang again if they hear of any funny business.
Yeah.
Because the other 6 who condemned him, they already gone, Karen. They dead.
There's only 2 that remain.
And then Igor leaves and accidentally on purpose spits on one of them as he leaves.
He coughs, Greg. He coughs.
Then we see Frankenstein hypothesizing to Benson about how his father used lightning to bring the creature to life. And he mentions cosmic rays.
Yes. Which they didn't even know existed at the time, meaning his father wouldn't have known. But it's the source of life.
Frankenstein says, as a man, he should destroy the creature, but as a scientist, he should bring him back to life and vindicate his father.
And the scientist wins, of course.
And Igor's listening. Frankenstein tells Benson to turn on the generator. Sparks and electricity, test the coil. What's the thing that goes up? The 2?
I don't know, but that was very common.
What it's called.
back in the day. I said they're going to need more electricity, but they hook him up like a battery.
The creature revives for a minute, and he goes back into a coma, and Frankenstein believes he cannot revive him.
He gives up off
Jacob's ladder. That's what it is. It's a Jacob's ladder.
What do you use it for?
Effect. At least in haunted houses you do. So then the servant tells the inspector that he has seen enough at the castle and he wants to quit. This is when the guy comes to the
council. He's in town.
Council. Yeah. Inspector pays him some coins and tells him to keep working and report to him any funny business. Cut to the inspector arriving at the castle and talking to Elsa. Elsa says Frankenstein spends most of his time in the laboratory, but he is out for a walk at that moment. And then he arrives back in from his walk.
Yeah, she's telling him too much. Frankenstein is a bit nervous about what she's saying to the inspector.
Inspector questions him about using the laboratory of his father. They talk about the sulfur and how hot it is. Inspector says he would like to see the lab. Frankenstein says, "Oh, well, I will have to invite you up one day."
Yes.
One day in the future, but not now.
That was a nice sidestep.
So then Peter arrives down and stairs and greets the inspector. Frankenstein explains, well, because Peter goes to shake his hand, the inspector puts out his left hand because his right hand is artificial. And there's this whole thing where, you're not supposed to shake with your left hand and you shouldn't wear gloves in the house and all this shit that Peter's says.
Doing all the manners. He's the little kid.
But Frankenstein explains to Peter that the inspector lost his arm in the war and he is now better than a general. He is an inspector.
Yes.
So this goes back to this conversation we heard earlier between the inspector and Frankenstein about how he wanted to be in the army and be a general, but he lost his arm and he couldn't. So Frankenstein's kind of doing him a solid here. He's,
Yeah.
Frankenstein's not a bad dude. The next, Peter talks of seeing a giant. He says the giant grabbed his arm, and then they looked at a picture book together, and the giant left. And Frankenstein looks worried, as does the inspector.
Yes. Neither of them looks happy.
Frankenstein takes Peter to bed. He asks Peter to tell him all about the elephants and the giants. Peter describes the creature to Frankenstein, how he walks and everything, and
he's got a hairy coat on and he walks slowly. So Frankenstein would recognize it. And he does say, Peter, the kid, says that tigers and elephants or whatever were made up, but the giant was real.
Frankenstein runs out of the room. Inspector stops him. Frankenstein says he just remembered he has to check something in his laboratory.
I just remembered.
Yes, and he runs away. He arrives in the laboratory and finds the creature and Igor are missing. He tries to open the secret door, but isn't able to. He's too weak. He uses the block and tackle to open the hole in the floor. He descends down into the crypt. Creature and Igor are nowhere to be found. Frankenstein takes a knife from a table there and puts it in his coat. Then he begins mixing chemicals or something as the creature approaches behind him.
Yeah, that was some good shadow work coming up behind him.
Creature grabs Frankenstein's arm. Creature places his hands on Frankenstein's neck and then seems to recognize him, I wrote. I didn't know what was.
I think he did recognize him, and that goes back when they're in the library. I don't know who says it. Benson, maybe. You really do resemble
your father.
Yeah, so he looks like his dad. So the monster sort of recognizes him.
Creature walks away and sees himself in a mirror. He does not like what he sees.
Not at all. I've had those moments myself.
I was going to ask Karen, have you ever experienced that?
All the time. You don't, having your everlasting beauty or whatever, but I definitely, whoa, need to fix something there.
Do you think, I need to get some blood?
Yeah, sure. I am pretty pale. I do grunt and groan a lot when I see myself in the mirror. Such disappointment.
Then the creature pulls Frankenstein to the mirror and he seems to compare himself to Frankenstein. He realizes he don't look quite right, Karen. And he is repulsed by his reflection. Igor arrives and explains that after Frankenstein left the creature, it got up and walked again. Tells
Yes.
him, you've cured him, whatever. He tells the creature that Frankenstein is a good man, but Igor does say the creature does what he tells him.
Yes, and then he also flips the mirror so he doesn't have to worry about looking at himself. That's a good friend right there.
Frankenstein tells Igor that no one must know the creature is there. Only
He also
Benson
says
knows, and he will never tell.
Frankenstein also says he did make him walk, but he isn't well, like in the head, he says.
Yes.
And he wants to continue the experiments, but Igor is against that. Says you're not going to touch him again. He's mine.
And then we see Frankenstein telling Benson that the creature is alive. And he explains Igor's control over the creature. He tells Benson.
He asks if the inspector is still in the library, which he is, which is weird. It seemed like that was a long time that he was over there.
But Frankenstein's fear is that Igor will obey Igor. Benson wants Frankenstein to tell the inspector everything. He refuses.
Yes. So is this where they're talking and Igor is listening and saying that the monster does everything Igor says? So Frankenstein needs to figure out how to control Igor.
Then Igor brings the creature through a secret passage, shows the creature a man outside the castle.
Yeah, he kind of points to him
in a carriage and motions kind of like to kill him. Using sign language to the creature. I don't know. So then we see the creature hanging from a tree and grabs the man from the carriage. And
he walks through some Froggy's fog, but yeah.
Places him under the wagon and runs him over, basically. He gone. Igor plays a sad tune on whatever freaking instrument he's playing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you knew what that was.
No.
But he's definitely drawing attention to himself because there's a guard outside the house. So the guard can see Igor the whole time, knowing he never left.
It's like a big recorder. But
that's what it looked like.
So then we see the inspector once again having dinner with the Frankenstein. We learn Benson is missing. Frankenstein lies and tells Elsa that he sent Benson to the laboratory to get some notes. A loud knock at the door, Karen. One of the inspector's men is there reporting an accidental death in the village, and the inspector excuses himself. Elsa tells Frankenstein to look for Benson. Frankenstein questions Igor about Benson. Igor says Benson came to the laboratory to see if the creature walked, and then he ran away. Run away, run away. Cut to the town, and we see the doctor and the inspector examining the body. Inspector tells the doctor he wants an autopsy performed. He wants to know if the heart bursts. So then we see Frankenstein sneaking to bed and putting a revolver under his pillow.
We also saw Igor marking a door with an X.
Did we?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, very quickly. And then Frankenstein is putting a gun under his pillow. He's lost all control of everything at this point.
Elsa questions him about Benson. She is worried. She says she hates it there. Frankenstein tells her he will send her and Peter to Brussels in the morning, and he will accompany them in a few days.
She also says she's worried about him, that he's not acting like himself.
Elsa leaves to get Peter. She will feel better if he is sleeping with her. Again, Igor plays sad music as the creature wanders the woods.
I thought maybe he was using it to hypnotize the creature, but I think it's just an alibi.
And we see the creature at the apothecary.
That's what the door was X'd on.
Oh, we did see a quick shot of that earlier. I didn't notice that he was marking an X on it, though.
Yeah.
And he pulls the blinds, Karen. He seems to be very smart.
Very agile, too.
Yes, he does. And then we see a reflection or shadow. This is a good shadow work here. Shadow of the creature attacking the apothecary.
Yes.
As he's smoking a large pipe, Karen.
Yes.
And then we cut to angry townsfolk. I guess they're mad because I don't know why. because no one knows the apothecary's dead yet. But
The other guy is dead, and they've got their pitchforks and they're starting to gather.
Inspector goes to the castle and tells Frankenstein about the butler.
We asked about the butler, and
Oh, asked about the
Frankenstein
butler.
says, oh, he's got, basically throws him under the bus from the war, saying he's got
Yeah.
PTSD, and he wanders off sometimes, which I think is a lie.
And he tells the inspector that he's going into town to make arrangements for Elsa and Peter to take the train to Brussels. Inspector warns Frankenstein that the death from the previous night was another burst heart, and the angry townsfolk arrive.
But I don't know why they're going up to him now. 6 other people before he even got there.
He wasn't there then.
I know. So why are they coming up to the castle?
Because he's there now.
Well,
they have someone to blame.
I guess, but it's kind of weak.
Inspector tells Frankenstein you can't go into town. Inspector explains to Elsa that it is not safe for them to leave. And Inspector and Frankenstein go to the library. Then we cut to a screaming woman leaving the apothecary, so someone knows he's dead. Inspector goes to see Peter. He questions Peter about the giant. Peter tells the inspector about the secret passage.
He says he comes through the wall.
Peter shows the inspector a watch that the giant gave him. It is a pocket watch with the name Thomas Benson inscribed in it.
Doesn't look good for Benson.
Nope. Elsa explains to Frankenstein that if she were a police officer, she would be suspicious of him as well. Frankenstein says he's been working too hard and the work is affecting him. He tells her there is nothing to be afraid of, but she senses that he is afraid as well. Knock at the door, Karen. One of the inspector's men enters and whispers to him, probably about the apothecary, because he leaves immediately.
And he's like whispering, but up to the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Frankenstein takes the opportunity to go to the lab. Frankenstein climbs down the ladder by the sulfur pit and into the cave. Frankenstein grabs a rock and starts to kill the creature because it's laying there. Igor stops him. Igor admits that he had all the men who sentenced him to death killed by the creature. Igor explains that the creature is his. The creature grabs Frankenstein and Igor pulls him off of him. Angry townsfolk. Inspector keeping the castle safe. Inspector sees Frankenstein again. Frankenstein offers him a drink of brandy again.
And plays some darts.
He refuses. Inspector tells Frankenstein about the other death of the apothecary. Inspector basically arrests Frankenstein as an accomplice to murder of Benson. Inspector has already had the laboratory inspected, but all they found was a large table. Frankenstein tries to push blame on Igor. Inspector says Igor was under constant surveillance while the murders occurred because he was playing his fucking horn or whatever in the window.
Yes.
Frankenstein says he is going to go kick Igor off the estate as long as the inspector agrees. He does, and Frankenstein runs off. Inspector goes to investigate Peter's room and he finds the secret door. Cut to Frankenstein, goes to the lab, finds Igor, and Frankenstein has his gun in hand. They fight very little.
Yeah, Igor comes at him with a
hammer. Frankenstein fires 5 shots into Igor. He gone. Cut the inspector, finds the secret door and mechanism in Peter's room. He enters to investigate. He finds the body of Benson. He exits and closes the secret door behind him. Back in the lab, the creature finds the body of Igor. He screams. Cut the inspector telling Elsa he promises her he will get her and Peter out in the morning. Inspector goes to Frankenstein. Frankenstein tells him that he killed Igor because Igor tried to kill him. It was self-defense. He came at him with a hammer. Inspector congratulates him.
Yeah. Way to go.
Good. He says he's found the body of Benson. But he says Igor didn't do it. There is a monster loose. Frankenstein knows it. He threatens Frankenstein to feed him to the villagers. Frankenstein offers him another drink of brandy.
Yes, he does.
Then we did see the creature carrying Igor to the crypt. He is very sad and angry. He's going through the stages of
grief.
The
lipstick on him is terrible. Very distracting to me. I don't know why they did that, but
It's black lipstick, right?
yeah, well, it's black in the black and white film. Yeah.
What's wrong with it?
I don't know. It just distracted me. Like, why would I don't know.
It wasn't as good as Catherine Deneuve.
It seemed perfect, and it's always kind of distracted me.
It's very thin, though.
Yeah.
It's thin. Well,
I don't
whatever.
know. It just distracted me. I'm just saying.
So then the creature crawls up to the laboratory and begins destroying it, throwing everything into the sulfur pit.
Yeah, he's mad his friend is gone.
And he finds Peter's picture book. And I couldn't tell if he was mad or what he was doing there, but creature goes down into the cave and into the secret passages. He enters Peter's room. Cut to Frankenstein and the inspector playing darts.
Angrily.
Creature takes Peter.
Yeah, because Amelia is outside Peter's room knitting, so he's alone. Now, one night ago, Elsa couldn't sleep if Peter wasn't in the bed with her. Next night, Amelia's outside his room and Peter's in there alone. It was weird.
Then Elsa and Amelia alert Frankenstein and the inspector. Inspector goes to Peter's room and goes through a hidden passage. Cut to the creature holding Peter over the sulfur pit, but he does not throw him in. It's like he can't do it. He helps him up into the laboratory.
And then Peter helps the monster up the ladder too. It was cute.
He does. Was it cute?
Yeah, it was cute.
Inspector arrives. Creature pulls his artificial arm off.
Yeah.
Inspector shoots the creature. Frankenstein swings like Errol Flynn.
Or Tarzan, depending on what you watched as a kid.
Once again, Karen, it's Errol Flynn, not Tarzan. And pushes the creature into the sulfur pit. He go.
And grabs his son.
Inspector lets Elsa and Amelia into the laboratory. Cut to Frankenstein deeding the castle to the angry townspeople, but now they're cheering. He says, you can do with it what you will. Here it is.
I don't know if they were cheering that he was leaving the castle to them or that they were leaving. Kind of was like, okay, goodbye. And everybody's like, yay.
He wishes them goodwill as he gets on the train and leaves. Credits.
That's what you do after I leave your house. Yay.
No,
Frankenstein's monster did melt.
That never happens.
Yeah, melt in the sulfur pit.
All right, Karen, what'd you think of the Brandy Alexander cocktail?
It's really good. I really liked it.
Mine evaporated a long time ago.
It's a very fall-like.
It is.
So it'd be great for Halloween.
I thought that as
around
well.
The air.
When I took my first drink, I'm like, ooh, this is like autumn. Yes, it's very good. I could have just had straight brandy because that's all they drink.
I know, it's true.
But I tried to find a brandy cocktail, and I saw that, and I'm like, ooh, that looks delicious. Anything we learned today, Karen?
What did we learn? We learned about heart rates and high blood pressure and sulfur baths that give you ageless beauty and some superstitions having to do with your bed.
I once again got references to Santa Claus is coming to town in there. If you know, you know.
Okay. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Santa Claus is coming, not coming to town.
It happens in a lot of these movies. That reference.
A lot of the good ones.
Yeah.
We haven't done a cocktail rating.
It's true.
We usually do that earlier. What kind of cocktail rating are you giving this film, Karen?
It's a 3, I think.
Okay, it's a 3.
Do you want to fight me on it?
No, because you'll just drain my blood.
Okay.
Sometime when I'm not expecting it, because I think you're a vampire.
You're always expecting it. I think you're disappointed.
All right, 3 cocktails. Are we ready to move on to next film, Karen?
Sure, let's do that.
I believe it is your choice, is it not?
It is.
And what film have you chosen for us?
I've chosen a film from 2008 called Let the Right One In.
Ooh.
Guess what? It's an artsy vampire film.
Yes, I know, Karen.
With subtitles.
I know, Karen.
And it's long.
Is it?
2 hours.
I've actually wanted to see this.
Yeah, that's the only reason I picked it. It's just on my list. So,
Oh, I thought you picked it because I wanted to see it.
yes, isn't that what I said?
Not quite.
Oh,
That's
you're
where I
not
thought
drunk
you were
enough to.
going, but no.
Well, you know,
Any reason you chose that film other than it's been on your list?
no,
No? Just because it's been on your list?
yeah,
Okay. Do we have a cocktail go along with it?
I do.
Go on, vampirus. What cocktail have you chosen for us?
It's called loneliness.
Of course it is.
You're going to need 1.5 parts of absolute vodka, 1 dash of orange bitters, 3/4 part lemon juice, 3/4 part vanilla syrup, 1/3 part egg white. Fill a shaker with ice cubes, add all the ingredients, shake and strain into a rocks glass.
I'll have to buy egg beater egg whites because I'm not separating eggs. Is that what you're telling me?
You can do that.
Well, duh.
I don't know. It says vanilla syrup, and there is a recipe for that, but I'm wondering if I just use vanilla vodka, if I would get away with it.
Or vanilla extract?
It's simple syrup with vanilla in it.
Fill it. Yeah.
So you just nuke it and put a little vanilla syrup.
Yeah, I got simple syrup and I can put some vanilla extract in it.
But I also have absolute vanilla vodka, so I was thinking I could
I have vanilla vodka as well.
throw that in there. Just
Not sweet though, it's syrup.
It's true. Syrup would be sweeter. It sounds good to me, so we'll see. I don't know why it's called loneliness, but it is.
Okay.
Because
Awesome.
there's a lonely kid in this film, apparently.
Yeah, I have a feeling this film's going to make me cry.
It's going to be a tough one, I think.
I've been hearing about it since 2008, pretty much. So we'll see.
You've
There's
not
a
seen
Hammer. No, I haven't, but there is a Hammer remake, which is on my list as well, which is in English. It's called Let Me In. So we'll see.
It's based on a book, which, depending on the movie, might be interesting to read. They can be very different, though, the books and the movies, so hard to say.
But the books are usually better,
True.
in my experience. All right. I'll look forward to that. And I mean it this time. Anyone you need to thank this week, Karen?
Oh, let me think, Greg. Who should I thank? How about our listener? Because you know what? There's a shit ton of podcasts out there. Thanks for spending time with us. How about you, Greg? Who do you need to thank?
Well, Karen, I'm going to thank Kenneth Brady for subscribing to us on YouTube.
Way to go, Kenneth.
And as always, the band Verse 13 for providing all the music in the Scary Spirits podcast.
The music definitely makes the podcast better.
Anything else, Karen?
Please drink responsibly.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to the Scary Spirits podcast, where the movies might be iffy, but the drinks are always solid. We would love to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Scary Spirits Podcast, or go to our website, scaryspirits.com. And if you want the direct line, email us at info@scaryspirits.com. If you really want to help us out, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And remember, always drink responsibly. See you next week.